those of the guests appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
It wasn't harassment, it wasn't sexual in nature or anything like that. And she's entitled to her personal space.
Tonight on Politics Now, a TV exclusive one-on-one interview with Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden about Lucy Flores, healthcare, bipartisanship, and more.
I believe the governor and I believe the Senate leadership.
The debate over funding education. The Clark County School District Superintendent talks about his recent meeting with Governor Steve Sisolak about coming up with more money for our schools.
Promises were made. We expect promises to be kept.
And will those budget differences lead to a teacher strike? The timeline for when that could happen next on Politics Now.
From 8 News Now, this is Politics Now with Steve Sebelius and Patrick Walker.
Since announcing his candidacy for president, former Vice President Joe Biden has become the Democratic frontrunner, according to recent polls. And this week, he made his first campaign stop in Las Vegas. Thanks for joining us. I'm Steve Sebelius.
And I'm Patrick Walker. I was the only TV reporter who was given a one-on-one with Biden. Here's part of that interview. Well, thank you for taking some time with us, Mr. Vice President. I think off the bat we need to talk first about former State Senator Lucy Flores. She mentioned that she felt uneasy. You were quoted as saying, "Not once, never did I believe I acted inappropriately. If suggested I did so, I will listen respectfully." Over the past 5 weeks or so, what have you heard, and has that belief changed?
Well, no, look, she was fair. She said that that I didn't do anything that was, it wasn't harassment, it wasn't sexual in nature or anything like that. And she's entitled to her personal space, and I have to be more careful about it. If you notice when I was here today, if you notice I take a lot of selfies now. And if you notice that the only persons I hugged were people who come and say, "Can I hug you?" And so I was trying to be reassuring, but the truth of the matter is that she's completely entitled. If it made her uncomfortable, it's my fault.
Let's talk about the campaign trail. Union event today. This is a state, obviously a very union-friendly state. Hillary Clinton did well here in 2016. Didn't do well in the middle of the country in places like Michigan and Ohio. So if you're the nominee coming up here in 2020, what do you need to do to flip those states back in Democrats' favor?
Be who I am.
Straightforward, be who you are.
No, I'm serious. It's just, I have carried the moniker for my whole career. I'm middle-class Joe. And it's never meant as a compliment, but if you notice, I said there's 3 reasons I'm running. The second reason is to restore the backbone of this country. Focus on what's happening. You realize that a significant portion of the American population, if they got a bill for $400 unexpected, they wouldn't know how to pay it. That's what's happened to the middle class. It's getting crushed. It's getting crushed. The majority of the American people of the middle class think their children will not have the same standard of living they had. There's no need for that. We can easily turn that around.
You talked about bipartisanship and working in Washington very extensively. Do you see the climate, the current climate, can that work? Are you hopeful?
Not with Donald Trump, but yes, it can work. Look, they told me I couldn't get control, I couldn't get support for significant increase in cancer research. After Trump was elected, in January, before we went out of session, as Vice President of the United States, I was able to put together with some really serious Republicans a $6.8 billion investment in cancer research. And you know, we were able to put together when I was Vice President, a proposal to deal with immigration by changing the circumstance why people immigrate, by setting out a lot of money for the southern triangle of Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala, and say, look, we'll help you rebuild your schools. We'll help you reform your police departments. And what did the president do? He just eliminated it. But that was a bipartisan effort.
Healthcare, Affordable Care Act, that came under the Obama administration, of course, as the vice president. You have said that you want to see more progress toward making healthcare affordable. What are the fixes you want to see?
Well, the fixes are we have to restore the Affordable Care Act. And number one, make sure that, you know, if you notice, everybody said initially, well, they don't support that. All of a sudden they found out the reason my child gets covered with a pre-existing condition, or my husband or my wife, is because of the Affordable Care Act. The reason my son or daughter can stay in my health care until they're age 26 is because of the Affordable Care Act. I can go on and on and on. We have to make sure they cannot deconstruct it, number one. And number two, we should make it available. Everyone, whether they have a employer-based plan or a self-funded plan, they should all be able to buy into a Medicare-like proposal that would allow them to be able to have buy-in, allow them to be able to have extensive coverage. Everybody, and we can cover 98% of the American people that way, and possibly as many as 100% of the American people.
Well, I did misspeak really at the beginning of that interview. Flores, of course, was a member of the state assembly at the time, not the state senate. Biden also answered questions about immigration and the Trump tax cuts. You can see the full interview on LasVegasNow.com. Well, as with just about any campaign event, protesters made their voices heard outside Tuesday's rally. Some held signs accusing Biden of running a divisive campaign. Others say they are simply not impressed with his record.
We look forward to talking about the 8 years of the failed Obama-Biden policies. You know, the outrageous economic problems that we saw in this state. High unemployment, took forever to bounce back. Finally, President Trump has us on the up and up and has this economy roaring and booming.
And another Democratic presidential candidate showed up in southern Nevada. That's Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. She was in Las Vegas on Monday. She held several campaign stops in Las Vegas. Gillibrand spoke to local members of the Service Employees International Union and said her ability to work on a bipartisan basis sets her apart from the rest of the Democratic field.
I got my start in a 2-to-1 Republican district in upstate New York, winning a House race twice, the last time with a 24-point margin, and then went on to win my state at 72%, which is the highest vote percentage in the history of the state, higher than anyone who's ever run statewide. And so I have a history in bringing the red places, the blue places, and the purple places together, and getting a lot of legislation passed in the meantime.
That's higher than Hillary Clinton. She ran in New York as well. This was Gillibrand's second visit to Nevada this year. South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg is here tonight, where he'll be the keynote speaker to the Human Rights Campaign's 2019 Las Vegas dinner at Caesars Palace.
Well, Steve, a lot of the candidates really have been making their pitches to the union members here in Las Vegas. Biden and Gillibrand this week, and then a big event a couple of weekends ago that we were both at, where really, I think it was 6 candidates were up there. So does anybody have union support right now?
It seemed like 60. No candidate has it locked up yet, I don't think. They're all trying. I mean, that event that we attended last time also with the Service Employees International Union, same support, same reason. The union support here, especially the culinary union, is critical to getting voters to turn out for the caucus. And so mobilizing those voters, union support is definitely key to that. They already have the infrastructure in place. So every candidate really wants to be the union candidate.
Well, education funding has dominated the headlines for the past few months as lawmakers are searching for the money to fully fund a number of proposals from Governor Steve Sisolak. Clark County School District's superintendent met with the governor on Wednesday to talk about education funding, and he spoke with reporters about the meeting. Clark County School District Superintendent Dr. Jesus Jara weighed in on a number of issues Thursday related to education funding. After joining the other 16 superintendents from around the state for a meeting with legislative leadership and the governor, Jara said he felt good about how budget talks are going, though he didn't go into specifics.
I want to be very clear that the governor and the leadership in Carson City is really in partnering with all superintendents to work together to come to a solution on our budgets.
Jara told reporters it's still too early to pencil state funding for teacher raises into the district's budget, which is due for a hearing May 20th.
But I want to be very clear, and I'm really pleased and excited as superintendent that we are working together on solutions so we compensate our employees.
If the money comes down as expected, Jara says the district will reopen the budget and add in the additional funding. Jara says the district is also helping in drafting the weighted funding formula that will replace the decades-old Nevada plan. There's no word when that will be introduced in front of the legislature. While this has been unfolding, teachers are currently voting whether or not to strike in the fall. Jara says he is keeping a close eye on the situation.
Working with legal right now and our labor attorneys to make sure that obviously striking in the state of Nevada in a right-to-work state is illegal, so we will have to take the necessary steps.
And we will soon know if teachers plan to follow through with those strike threats at the beginning of next school year.
Yeah, the CCEA has been holding a vote all week. That ends tonight at midnight. As we previously reported, polls had shown that union members were in favor of a strike. Here's what a teacher and the executive director of the CCEA said about that vote.
I'm here for the kids, and I know every other 18,000 plus educators that we do have are in my same, boat. We're trying to be here for the kids, and we just hope that Carson City can come through and fund our schools now.
Listen, anybody that's not taking this serious has been in a different time zone. It has been growing for years. It's reached its tipping point. Promises were made. We expect promises to be kept.
Now, it's illegal in Nevada for public sector employees to strike. The school district could get a court order, start fines of up to $50,000 a day for the union, and start firing teachers if a strike were to happen. That law, by the way, went into effect after Clark County teachers went on a strike a half-century ago. That's back in 1969.
Well, Steve, there is another variable, which a Legislative Council Bureau opinion came out saying that Democrats, they don't need the two-thirds vote to postpone a scheduled lowering of the payroll tax, which could solve a almost $100 million issue.
Yeah, a lot of money at stake. That 24-page opinion came out this week. It says that a bill that simply prevents a tax that was scheduled to expire from expiring does not need two-thirds because it doesn't actually increase the tax rate. So the fact is, under the Constitution, anything that raises taxes needs two-thirds. But according to the LCB, if it just keeps the tax at the same level, it won't need a two-thirds vote. Now, Republicans have said that that is a quote-unquote legal fiction. That's what Senator James Settlemeyer called it. And they've said they will sue if the Democrats pass this bill to extend that tax without getting two-thirds.
Well, another key part of the school budget is construction costs. Up next on Politics Now, a bill to restore prevailing wages on school projects and the other argument over whether it will help middle-class workers or put another crimp in the CCSD.
News Now. Welcome back to Politics Now.
Democrats are working to repeal a 2015 law that cut prevailing wages on school projects. That was passed by the then Republican-controlled legislature.
Democrats say they want good wages and the highest quality construction. Witnesses at the hearing this week hotly debated the question, will this save money? One UNLV professor who studied the issue before and after the change says no, but a policy analyst for a conservative think tank disagreed.
The major findings of our study was that when we used data on school construction costs from 2013 to 2017, we found no statistically significant impact of prevailing wage laws on construction costs. And so it's our finding that AB 172 did not deliver on its promise to lower construction costs on schools.
NPRI opposes AB 136 because it will cost taxpayers tens of millions of dollars, according to the bill's own fiscal notes, just so union workers on public works projects can be paid wages that are, on average, 62% above market rates.
The rule would also be extended to private charter schools as well, requiring them to pay prevailing wages, even though many charters have to raise private funds to build their buildings. The Labor Commissioner would determine what the prevailing wage is, so who's right? Well, another lobbyist who opposed the bill said there are studies on both sides and some that say it makes no difference at all. One thing appears certain, however, with plenty of Democratic votes in the Senate and a Democratic governor, it appears this bill will become a law.
Well, this week the legislature was still reeling from the sudden death of Assemblyman Tyrone Thompson. In honor of his work with homelessness, every other member of the legislature signed on to a bill that would provide free IDs for homeless youth at the DMV. AB 363 applies to a homeless person under the age of 25 when asking for a driver's license exam, replacement ID card, or copies of their birth certificate. It passed out of a Senate committee today and heads to a full Senate vote. There was one amendment. Every other member of the Assembly, they were added on as sponsors.
Thompson passed away a week ago after falling ill in Carson City. He was a fierce advocate for homeless causes and for education. His funeral will be held in Las Vegas on Saturday, May 17th.
Well, who would be at fault if teachers strike?
It is too early in the Sisolak administration to talk about what it would do to the governor's legacy going forward.
There's a blotch on his governorship, his tenure as governor, absolutely.
Our face-off panel takes on the potential teachers' strike and who it would hurt the most next on Politics Now.
Well, we've been talking a lot this week about a potential teacher strike, so we put the question of who would get the blame for a walkout if it happens. Here's KXNT radio host Alan Stock from the right and elections attorney Bradley Schrager from the left.
Who looks bad when the teachers go on strike, if that is to happen?
Well, it is hard for me at the moment to judge the seriousness of this effort. We're obviously in the midst of a legislative session that it's nearing its climax. I won't say its completion because that's never a certain thing. So right now I see it as a ploy to get things done during this session. If it maintains after that and into the summer, the notion of whether it will hurt the governor or not, or will hurt legislators, it still remains to be seen, because whose feet can you really lay something like that at? It would be extraordinary in Nevada for teachers to go on strike. I don't know who would be hurt by this. It is too early in the Sisolak administration to talk about what it would do to the governor's legacy going forward. He's still building a track record as opposed to a legacy. So we'll see on that, but there's a long way to go until school starts in late August to know anything about it, really.
I think it's a ploy at this point. I mean, it is, obviously. Yeah, right now it is, because they're not on strike yet. And no raises come through yet, so it's kind of a pressure point. So that is a fact. It is a ploy. If they go on strike because they don't get the raise that was promised them by Sisolak in the State of the State address, then yeah, there's a blotch on his governorship. His tenure as governor, absolutely, because he will have failed to come through for part of his constituency, one. Number two, it'll be a huge blotch, I believe, on the teachers' union, and by extension teachers as well, public school teachers, because what they would be saying is, in fact, yes, people break the law within the understanding that I'll pay the consequences, but what they're saying, and what the message they're giving to students is, and everyone else, is if you want something bad enough, and you have to break the law for it, it's okay to do it as long as you're getting rewarded for it.
When you look at teachers as workers, and you know, Alan, when you say especially teachers, I understand they fulfill a specific and important role within our society. We expect them to teach our children. But as workers, you know, no one enters into a strike lightly. It means going without pay. It means relying upon, if you have a strike fund, relying upon each other. It's also an organizational effort that is highly consequential. So I would trust the teachers to make a responsible decision and to only go on strike and to put the school year at risk if that was truly all they could do to make headway on the things that they truly need. I don't think they're being unreasonable. They're not asking for, you know, golden schools and you know, extra cars and free things. They're asking for things that they feel they've been promised over the years.
The point is that breaking the law is okay as long as I can benefit from it. And that is a message, that will be the message, that the fact that if I want something bad enough, even though it entails breaking the law, knowing there will be consequences, but if I break the law, and the consequence here would be that I get rewarded for it by getting money for it, the blotch, I think, will be on Sisolak only because he made that promise. Now, if he said at the State of the State, we're going to do what we can, we're going to work with them, if we can get it through this session, fine, if not, we'll do it next session, but we're going to begin the process, we'll see what we can do. But he made a promise, and all those people in the whole auditorium stood up, and they were going mad, applauding him for it.
Well, you can watch our panel debate whether Joe Biden is the Democratic frontrunner here in Nevada, that prevailing wage for school construction bill we told you about earlier in the show, and if Attorney General William Barr should be held in contempt of Congress. That's all on our website at lasvegasnow.com. Patrick?
All right, Steve, this is Eye on Carson City, where we tell you about some of the other things happening at the state capitol this week. Nevada lawmakers are working on writing regulations for electric scooters. Companies like Bird and Lime that make those scooters are becoming more popular here in Nevada. AB 485 creates rules for them. Among the proposed regulations, riders would have to be at least 16 years old. The scooter cannot weigh more than 100 pounds, and it cannot travel faster than 20 miles per hour. The bill passed the Assembly on a 40-to-1 vote. And AB 248 would ban gag orders on lawsuits involving sexual discrimination or harassment. Those types of settlements have received a lot of national attention recently. For example, Steve Wynn's settlement of a sexual harassment lawsuit for $7 million with a provision that the victim would not talk about what happened. AB 248 had its first hearing in the state Senate this week. It previously had passed over in the Assembly 34-7. If passed, it would apply to lawsuits going forward starting in July. And coming up next on Politics Now, Senator Jackie Rosen makes her maiden speech on the Senate floor, the issue she took up.
In her first Senate floor speech ever, Nevada Democrat Jackie Rosen called for Congress to intervene in federal court to save the Affordable Care Act.
There are plenty of ways we can work to improve the Affordable Care Act and lower health care costs, but destroying the law and leaving our loved ones at risk is simply unacceptable.
The Trump administration has challenged Obamacare's constitutionality in court. Rosen's resolution would ask the Senate legal counsel to take up the other side of the lawsuit.
What that means is that this administration is putting everyone's health care under attack. It's sabotaging everything we have. They want to repeal it all through the courts with no replacement.
Rosen sponsored a similar legislation in the House of Representatives last year, but it did not pass. A similar resolution is being sponsored again in the House. You can watch my full interview with Senator Rosen on LasVegasNow.com.
Well, in this week's What to Watch, another key deadline for the legislature is we're less than a month from the end of the session. Bills that are not exempt from the rules will have to pass out of their second House committee by midnight on Friday. These are bills that previously passed either the Assembly or Senate. It's one of the last key deadlines before the session ends on June 3rd. That's our show. Thanks for watching Politics Now.
We'll see you next week from Carson. We'll be back from Carson City.